It's hard to say.
When Gillian operates on a human being.
That's what I'm reminded of today.
Hi, Gillian. Scully was always rocking the cell phone, way before...
Rocking a cell phone?
Always on the cell phone. So, what's your own relationship with your cell phone? And on a more serious note, how do you think like the character of Scully has kind of influenced, kind of strong law enforcement, secret agent type women characters?
I think I only ever talked to Mulder on that cell phone. I don't think there was ever any conversation that was ever had with anybody else except for Mulder. And if you remember the cell phone...
You were my fave five.
Was I number one or number two? Was I number one? I still remember how big they were. Just happened to have it in our pocket.
Yeah, you had to have a trench coat.
I know. And the xenon. A cell phone in one and the xenon flashed on the other.
Talking on a phone that's not attached to anything.
But I've had letters from people, even actually recently, from people who have said, funnily enough, I've been a fan for many years, and it was because of Scully that I'm now a forensic pathologist, or I'm now a medical doctor, or I'm now in the FBI, or any of the 15 things that she was as a profession, to be able to say all those complicated words.
You were talented.
So, yes.
Well, the cell phone question is interesting because I think it extended the life of the series, because Gillian and I were so fatigued in the cell phone, the advent of the cell phone, what year? 96? I don't know. Was instrumental in us being able to have time off, because we could split up. We didn't have to be in the same room to have a conversation. So you could. I'm being totally serious. So that I could have some time off, Gillian could have some time off, and we just talk on the phone to one another rather than being in every scene together. So if not for the cell phone, no second half of the X-Files.
In terms of what's on film, how much does Chris encourage your sense of humor? I mean, obviously you're funny off camera.
Very little. Yeah. Chris and I have always kind of battled over that. In the series, it got in more and more for both of us. As we went on and did what we thought of as the funny episodes. And we both enjoyed doing those because they were like vacations. And Chris was certainly, as the showrunner, was guiding that and letting that happen, and saw the virtue in what a huge tent this show was, that it could encompass everything from standalones to mythology to parody of itself. And I can't think of another show that ever did that. We just never did the musical, is what we never did. That's the only thing. Thank goodness. And but in terms of like me coming up with stuff in the moment, usually Chris doesn't like that, because Chris has a different theory about tension than I do. He really feels like it lets the air out, and he doesn't like to do that. And I feel like I like letting the air out. So it's just a difference of opinion. I don't know what your take on that.
I'm not funny.
Yeah.
Did you ever ask her to the No Pants restaurant?
No, I never did. But I think I will.
Give me a few months, please.
Okay, well, yeah.
David, you mentioned that you were feeling a certain fatigue as the series was going along, and you kind of famously pulled away from it in the last season or two. But now we're reading that you're the one who really wanted to get this movie going. Can you, just talk about your, I don't know if it's a love-hate relationship with Mulder and the X-Files?
Well, I wouldn't characterize me as the one who really wanted to get it going, but I'm certainly somebody who, I would always say yes whenever Chris and I would talk about it, The love-hate has nothing to do with the actual content, the actual people, actual anything. Love-hate had to do with me wanting to get on with the rest of my life, the rest of my career, and when you think about what I did 8 years and Gillian did 9, that's a lifetime, and there are no other dramas that keep the same characters that run that long. If you look at Law and Order or ER, they're 20 years old or whatever they are, but they're completely recast. So it's just not, you don't see actors not get fatigued or not get frustrated. In a drama where we're working, cell phones are not, every day for many, many hours playing the same character. So it's just natural to burn out. So there was never any, there was always love for the show and love for the character. There was never any hate for that. It was
But it's
always
interesting. It's always something for the press to latch onto. It's always a surprise, in some way. It's a good headline when somebody wants to leave. It creates good drama, and so it becomes this thing where actually it's kind of a natural, it's part of.
Well, like they're ungrateful in some way.
Yeah.
Yes, I love the X-Files and I love Vancouver, and those things are true. Yeah.
Can you guys talk about working in those severe weather conditions up in Canada?
You're trying to trap me.
Speaking of lovingly.
Take it away.
This time around, I didn't have as much exposure to it as David did. Fortunately, Chris didn't write those words in the script for Scully. They were, but I was up there in Whistler. When I arrived, it was about 18 below. Fortunately, I didn't stay there for too long, but it was, I was out there for probably a good couple weeks, I guess, and it's beautiful, but it's also it's exhausting and.
Yeah. Well, let me try to say this in a way that, just in quotation marks, is going to get me in trouble. I had to work in one of the most beautiful ski resorts in the world for almost 3 weeks. Pity me. I think, it's hard. The logistics of it is if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're running around in the freezing rain and the snow, you don't get a chance to go off and warm up in your trailer because you're seeing so much your trailer is on the other side of town. So you are stuck in clothes that aren't fitting for the environment for a long time. So, yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but, you just suck it up. It's not going to be that long, and your feet are cold, and your ass is cold, and your hands are cold, and your muscles are cold. But, you suck it up.
I think one of the more physically challenging aspects for me at the time were that there were a couple of scenes where we had quite a bit of dialogue, and when you're in that kind of weather and the wind is slightly blowing and the snow is coming down, your lips actually, they do freeze. Yeah. They do, and there were a couple of times that were reminiscent of the pilot. There was a scene in the pilot where we're in pouring forced rain that's freezing and I'm screeching at him about something or another, and it felt kind of like...
say... Billy Miles came here...
I didn't make it funny.
No, but I remember it.
I remember it too. It was, it felt very much like that. But it was what was reminiscent was the fact that my mouth wouldn't work. Is that I had this all this stuff to say, and
when you see it on film now, it's just gorgeous. You look at those big snowflakes coming down on the movie.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's worth it. You have to know that when you're putting up with it. That if you're experiencing the discomfort, then it's probably going to look pretty good on you.
If there's pain involved?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask what's up for each of you. I know I can kind of guess what your next project is right there. But, after that, do you have another movie planned? And, David, are you going to be directing some more? And finally, I just wanted to ask you, was the George Bush, J. Edgar Hoover thing, was that scripted, or was it just to come up
with the movie? That was completely scripted, and that was an example where I was trying to be funny, what I thought was funny, and Chris was like, no.
That's probably because he knew in the back of his mind that little bit of music right there was going to be in there, which kind of does the humor.
Yeah. So no. Yeah, that was always in it. That was actually written in. I think, just
Yeah.
actually George Bush and James Goodman.
We tried a few other versions.
Yeah, what did we do? It was kind of funny. I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Maybe.
Yeah. But your upcoming projects?
You're right. That's where my focus is. I've got a couple things coming out, but the next thing I'm going to do is a play in London. I live in London, and I'm going to do a play there a couple months after the baby is born.
During your run of the show and of the movie, because of the themes that you guys handle, did you ever experience any real paranormal happenings, both on the set or outside the set when you were actually working on it? Connection with the real thing.
Yeah, I don't think
Well,
that's
at Riverview, I mean, there were plays that we shot during the series and also during the film that was an abandoned insane asylum.
But not so abandoned.
It's not so abandoned.
It's like half abandoned and half not.
Yeah. Well, the top floor is being used for something.
But there were some crazy people wandering around.
Yeah. There's miles and miles of institution and insanity. And
well, actually, when we did those photos, that was, for this movie where we did the.
Oh yeah, it's really creepy.
Yeah, we went into these rooms that had just tiny little rooms that only had loops on the floor for where you would hook somebody's restraining irons onto.
And paint peeling and all that stuff is.
But no, I don't remember any. I've never really had a paranormal experience per se in my life. I believe in the spirit and the energy, but I've never seen it, and I felt it, but not seen it.
Dread Central theme composed and performed by DeadHouseMusic.com.